The Hangout on Air is live. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
I got here because Georgette and I were about to finish up our discussion on the book.
What were y'all discussing? I didn't hear you.
Oh man, just talking about some of the events going on in the news these days. I was talking about there was a story a few days ago up here about a man and his 3-year-old daughter were walking down the street, and 3 other men, black men, opened fire on him, and all of this is caught on security cam, and so you see the toddler running for cover.
Oh my God.
And the news people were saying, well, the good news is the toddler wasn't hurt. But I'm thinking about Cooper as I'm watching this story, and I'm thinking, well, she's physically hurt, but somewhere in her, those scars are going to be with her forever.
Yeah.
And so we're just talking about the lack of honor, the lack of the loss of boundaries, where even children are not. And Georgette, tell the story you were talking about.
Oh yeah, the in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Yesterday it was on the news about the gentleman, his friend, and his friend's little. I think the baby was either 2 or 3, probably 2.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really young. Somebody blew the car up.
Oh my God.
And people came to it, and one lady said she saw a leg, and then she turned around and went the other way. And the other lady who was packing up to move out of the neighborhood said when she went, she saw a shredded body, and she was just really, really devastated. She couldn't believe something like that happened in their neighborhood. And they interviewed everybody. They seem to be, white working class people, so that's not an area you see that kind of stuff happening in. So maybe it was a hit, disgruntled lover, somebody who wanted child support. I don't know. Maybe you never know, because just if someone might have their child with them, and you still don't care, that's a heartless individual.
So you're saying a father and his 2-year-old got blown up?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Are we getting cooler or what?
I know, right?
So I really like that Cooper used her own, personal family experiences to kind of open up this exploration of violence, society. It really is crazy.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I guess let's open up. Everybody doing okay?
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't convincing, Nicole.
I was just thinking like that news was just, that's just sad to hear, but yes.
Yeah.
Sad to hear, but yeah. But we gotta do the work still, right?
Yeah.
That's what we ultimately know as Black women. We find a way, as Alice Walker said, in love, in trouble, you name it. We find a way to continue doing the work.
Yeah.
And so that's, but it does, there's something to kind of thinking through that, and just like childhood and cruelty, and when, just when children, but we already know this, right? Because when Blacks are agitating for rights, we know that our children's bodies were never spared, right? So we know that there are those young bodies met all kinds of violence. But it just takes, you think of like what is going on in this nation where children are subjected to such cruelty and such violence. But it's always been a part of this.
Georgette was hoping to get Joelle to join us tonight, so we could maybe have a little man's point of view on some of these issues that Cooper brings up in this chapter, but that didn't happen. So, fellas, I guess we're gonna have to figure you out ourselves.
Yes.
So, Georgette, you ready to get us started?
Sure. Okay. So, hello everyone, and welcome to session 11 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Georgette Moses, and I'm your facilitator for tonight's meeting. This session runs from September 11th to November 27th, 2018. Our reading selection for this session is Eloquent Rage, a Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower by Brittney Cooper. Our group meets each Tuesday evening from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube Live or Google Plus Hangouts on-air platform. You may find the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook. Always feel free to join us in reading our story together. And so with that, let us start with introductions. And we will start with Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Kim.
Hi everybody. I'm Kim Brandon. I'm in New York, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, thank you, Kim. And Leonie is on mute, so we're going to go over to Nicole.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Wilson. I'm joining from Houston, Texas. I have my book.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. And Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Odom in Brooklyn, New York, with my book all marked up.
Well loved. All right. Thank you, Michelle. And Leonie, are you going to come back to us? Oh.
Okay, I guess she'll be back.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to squeeze her in when she gets back on.
Okay.
Okay, so everyone's had a chance to read the agenda and questions? Okay, so you got your your instruments sharpened, you ready to dig into it?
All right.
Okay, well, tonight we're reading chapter 4, The Smartest Man I Never Knew. And my summary of the chapter goes like this. In this chapter, Brittney Cooper continues to peel back the onion layers on her psyche and the larger complexities and contradictions of our relationships with violence, illusions of masculinity, patriarchy, and sexism. She illustrates the painful truths of the struggle through the experiences of her mother, a victim of violence at the hands of the men she loved and who claimed to love her. Toxic masculinity kills. This was the lesson a young Brittney learned as a child. It fueled her inability to love her natural father, a man she could only see through the eyes of a victim. However, as an adult, she does allow that her father was a victim of patriarchy, toxic masculinity, alcoholism, and militarism. All conspired to block her from getting to know the smart, thoughtful, empathetic man others saw him to be. In her deconstruction, she offers that having a structural analysis of the logics of patriarchy doesn't let the Black males who abuse their partners off the hook. However, a racial empathy gap and gender empathy gap are very strong factors in thought and behaviors. Ultimately, unchecked violence not only topples empires, it devastates men and by extension, the women and children they profess to love. Okay, so um, let's just go down the line of questions because last time I know we loved that free flow feel, but we didn't get to all those good questions Kim had last time. So I'm gonna be a little bit of school marmish tonight.
All
And
right.
we go in order.
All right.
Okay, so who would like to take question number one?
All right, y'all know I can't hold out too long.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Start us off.
Question one. Think about the connections between racism, imperialism, patriarchy, militarism, and sexism. Do you agree that men in the Black community are cribbing from the same playbook? Well, I think what I was saying to Georgette a few minutes ago is I don't know what they're thinking about or what playbook they're cribbing from or really even who a lot of them are these days. Seems like something really kind of strange is going on. But I do think that all of those isms, racism, imperialism, militarism, sexism, as well as patriarchy, do have a lot of similarities, intersections. And there's some basic hierarchy inherent in all of those things that this nation that professes so much to believe in equality, to have been founded on the idea of equality, even though as Black people we know what a farce that was, even back then in the 1700s. But it's pretty telling that 200 plus years later, here we are, and we really have not embraced this idea of equality in terms of incorporating it into our lives. And so, maybe it's really not who human beings are. I don't, I hate to think that. But I don't know why it's so hard for us to truly embrace it. I mean, like when you think about, the arguments we're having, the public things going on, the Kavanaugh business, the Me Too business, it's like, how long does it take to learn a lesson? But if you really don't want to learn it, because it's always women's equality, many men have seen as a threat to their dominance, just like the idea of Black equality, is seen as a threat to many white people. And So I don't know. I mean, maybe human beings have to really question, whether or not we truly want more harmony, peace, harmony, love, equality, all of those things. I'm not so sure.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle. That's kind of a dire prognosis for humanity.
I'm sorry to downer these days, but I'm just like, I cannot believe some of the stuff I see going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's the influence from the top down. If we could just get that top changed, maybe some goodness might trickle back down too.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in last week, of course, is the chapter where Cooper deals with the 53% of white women who, helped to put the current top chain into place. So I don't know. I wonder what we really want. And I know it's complex. I know you've got to like really be in touch with yourself. You have to really have a capacity for independent thinking, to step outside of the mold that has been set for you. And I think most of us are just not that person.
Well, that's a great point, though, about having the capacity to go your own way.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So we're going to take a break and go to Leonie because she needs to introduce herself.
Didn't get away.
Happy to do so. Hello, everybody. My name is Leonie Smith, and I'm joining you from Richmond, California, though typically from Toronto, Canada.
Okay. Our world traveler. Thank you, Leonie. We were just on question number 1. Does anyone else have something they'd like to add? I see Kim thinking. You thinking, Kim? And Nicole's waiting back in the cut. I got a bomb for you. No.
I think what comes to mind in terms of what playbook is being used, I just think there's so much media and so much violence in your face all the time that troubles me. That even if you look at like the movie of the week, it's all about stalkers. It's all about, none of it is about quality of life. At no point do you see what healthy people should do. I mean, that doesn't exist because it doesn't get ratings. And so I just feel like prior to coming here and prior to Africa being so raped, we had a culture that survived for centuries. And I just think that we are losing our own culture, and we don't look to see what remnants of that still survives. And if any of that would help us out of the situation, that you would have to respect your own tribe. Duh. It's just a part of me that when I walk down the street and I'm not respected by my own people, that hurts me. And some of them don't even realize that there's a possibility that you could respect somebody in your own tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of the playbook, I think that the American culture, if that's what you want to call it, we're making this crap up as we go along, and we're not doing a good job. We're just hurting each other, all for money and profit. And if we are emulating anything that the murder, rapists, greedy thieves that started this country, if we're emulating that, what other playbook and what else could anybody who's following that playbook bring to their homes, bring to their family?
Thank you, Kim. That's a powerful insight. Okay.
Every once in a while I have one.
Oh, okay. You're so modest. Okay. Nicole, Leonie.
The only thing that I would say is that I don't think that, and I struggle with this in the reading of it, that like there is almost a sense of like wanting to find fault or blame or put intention around some of this behavior when the behavior is systemic. Like you've named in your great question, you know, that this is about racism and imperialism. And so, yes, you have Black men who are individual actors, but they're individual actors in an issue that is systemic. So I think that Black men are probably impacted in America, are probably impacted in a way that feels and looks similar. But I would rest that behavior and a lot of that impact as coming from the fact that we are all part of systems of oppression, including them. And so the systems put us in certain roles as actors that we're meant to play. Doesn't mean that as individuals, so people can't step back from that and learn how to behave and to be differently. But first they have to see it. And it's really hard to see a system unless you're looking for it.
Boom. Okay. Wow. You know, you ladies need to get together and write a book. Something you got. Wow. Okay, come on, Nicole. Come on. I know you got something. Thank you, Leonie. Okay.
No, I really agree. I guess for me, there's a slight tension because I could definitely see these connections. But I do think there is, these are forms of structural oppression, or shall I say, kind of, the residue of it or the effects of, thereof. But I think the difference is, though, that a lot of times the ways in which whiteness bears down on these kind of isms. I just don't think. I think that there's a greater reckoning, if you will, for Black men, is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to say that Black men cannot be sexist, that, that kind of oppression, as Brittney Cooper talks about here, kind of her father. But I think there's some intricate things that we could pull apart and kind of discuss those kinds of differences. Especially, I like the fact that you pull militarism in here. And I'm thinking about ways that speaks to specifically Black men, this experience, after Vietnam War, when we started to see, this radicalism, it was coming anyway. And in many instances, we could even argue it's always been present. But what it meant for Black men, so that kind of, I'm thinking through that with the militarism, but just in general, like a Black man ever be in Kavanaugh's position, and I know even with Clarence Thomas, you're just not going to get Black men to be able to sexually assault, serially sexually assaulting white women and getting away with it. Like, no, there's gonna be hell to pay. And so I think I'm just thinking about those types of differences where Black men are still being reminded that though there's a gender privilege, you're still Black, you know, and you're gonna pay those consequences. We could look at Bill Cosby, and you know, here, you know, again, you're going to pay the consequence at 81 years old. That a lot of these, what was it, Brock Turner, who raped a young woman, 20, 21 years old? Like, I don't remember, but you know, no real consequence there. So I'm just thinking through those kinds of things, Gio. So I agree with what everyone said, but I think there's kind of that complexity there as well, that Black men are still going to deal with harsher sentences, and you know, they're going to be prosecuted. A lot of times, you know. Now, if the victim is a Black woman, then okay, let's have another conversation. You know.
All right, thank you. Yes, it is definitely a complex issue to wrap your head around. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to question number 2. Would anyone like to take that?
I think Kim, you're muted.
Yeah, muted.
How'd you know I said I'd do it if I was muted?
She's watching you. No.
I can see your mouth, your lips moving.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. Michelle, man, we need you in the FBI. Okay. All right, so here we go. I'll try it again. Thank you, Michelle. Toxic masculinity kills. Can this be addressed by simply providing young men access to conversations about what it means to be a man in ways that are not rooted in power, dominance, and violence? What about young women? I think it would help. I can't see it not helping, but I don't think that's the answer. I just think, like everybody's saying, it's so complex. But I do think that if you don't have role models, if you're seeing that every conflict is resolved by violence, what else are you to do? It's so ingrained. Like you all were saying, that little baby who was watching people shooting and running, that'll be in her DNA almost, that there's an opportunity to shoot. You know, if things don't go your way, get a gun. I really don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but I think that we should be anti-violent in our home. That any type of place where we can get help from therapists, from counselors, from anything, you name it, we should set out to have a new model for how we deal with conflict within our homes and within our community, because we can't be the ones killing each other. I mean, America's already aiming guns at us, and then we're aiming the guns too, because that's what we're seeing to do. So I just find it disheartening that, you know, and I know we all read together post-traumatic slave syndrome, but it's just heartbreaking that the internalized racism is so well planted.
Yes.
This is sad we got.
Well, Kim, I hope you have one of those poems in your sock you can pull out at the end of this, okay?
I'll have to find something uplifting at least, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Does anyone else want to add to this?
Just that I see a lot, the more that I read about just like Black history from around the world, the more that I realize that like we as a people of African descent, are largely a peaceful people. We don't have the same, so it's not so much about creating something new, but tapping into what has existed already and knowing that we've been conditioned in the societies that we are living in to move towards violence because it supports the overall agenda to basically erase us. And so for me, the opportunity then is to look at like, what does it mean to like build community? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does it mean? Because in building community, you find other ways of being able to respond to things. Community is inherently nonviolent, right? What does it mean to like be to build interdependence, and knowing that these are just words, and it would be difficult, particularly in a context of the United States, which is so much about independence. But like, it's not independence is not our history, and there's a reason why it doesn't work for us. You know, we come from cultures that are very much interdependent, and that's very visible still in parts of Africa. Certainly, from my experience coming from the Caribbean, very much about interdependence, and that there's some opportunity. And I'm also aware of. I'm going to a thing this weekend with somebody who works in the favelas of Brazil, and doing restorative practice and restorative justice work, and that's where that's what it's rooted in. It's rooted in nonviolence and interdependence. So there's something that's present in us already. I think it's about tapping into that in order to decondition ourselves from the way that we're that from the role again that we've been assigned to play in this society.
Indeed. Thank you, Leonie. That's wow. Look, can't you just see Leonie over her little group instructing and sending people out with their mission?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. There's hope. There's hope. Wow. Good job, ladies. My goodness. See, you're lifting my spirits already. Okay. Nicole, Michelle, you have something you'd like to add to this question? Or?
Well, I very much agree with what's been said. You know, especially Kim's point that it can't hurt, and you know, and I think that young women and girls also need the same kind of access and role models, and you know, but I agree with Leonie that you know their history does seem to suggest that there's something very different about the nature of blacks and whites, but you know we're all in this world together, for good or for bad, and so toxic masculinity is not just something that affects Black men, but you know is very much prevalent in white men as well. And I think as more women kind of move toward these masculine models, you know, as long as we embrace our notion of equality as, you know, being able to take on some of these masculine ways that women too are becoming more violent and more toxic in that way. So, you know, it's whatever the tonic is, everybody needs it.
Yes, I agree. Serve it up. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Nicole, you got something you want to add to this?
Now, for once, I'm truly, like everybody said, they made my point. So, I mean, for once,
Okay. You're all on
I'm
the
just
same page.
speechless. Yes, absolutely. That was beautiful. Every Kim, Leonie, Michelle, that was beautiful. Y'all are so smart, smart women.
I agree. Okay. Thank you, ladies. Let's move on to question number 3.
Well,
Oh,
Georgette,
what?
are we going to hear any of your wisdom on these questions?
Oh, I mean, you guys, you really touched it, and definitely that's why I threw in the part about what about young women, as you said, Michelle, that they're being affected by the same whatever this toxic soup, this um, programming that has worked so well in the past. They are now being affected by it because they don't have the protections they used to have, or that I perceive women and young girls used to have, from that just hardcore get out there, get it, be it, do it, that materialism that I'm going to say use the term guttural,
Mm-hmm.
because that has displaced humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to what Kim said about it needs to start in the home. But if you break the home down, if there's nobody in the home who knows how to do those things, then you need to provide it in the community. Like Leonie said, you need something community based. But where are these like minded people who can have access or know how to get access to the resources to build to build it up in the community and become aware? Most people are struggling just to survive, and that's how I believe that's how they keep us in that low mindset. I have to survive, I have to go to this job I hate those people. And so all that toxicness, that toxicity at work comes home with you. You have no release, and now you're poisoning your kids. They're coming home out of the toxicity of their environment that they were in. And where is that place where those people can regenerate themselves?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it is. You have to worry about being safe at home and eating and the lights being on. So where's that lovely time you can go and trip the light fantastic and discover who you should be and what you need to be doing? I don't know. It's a bigger problem than we can each handle by ourselves, although we do need to start individually recognizing it and then look around. What can I do in my small area
Mm-hmm.
to assist in where I want to see the world going? It's worth a shot. Why not?
Yeah,
Better than complaining.
yeah, I agree with you, Gio, because I'm thinking about Howard Zinn, the people's historian, and he talks about that as well. That as the people start to rebel and revolt, and the rhetoric becomes more radical, then it's such that the ways in which capitalism and late it works is that again we are the oppression and the ways in which things start to suddenly cost more, and we're so busy trying to survive that we can no longer necessarily put our energies into those dealing with those structural oppressions. And so I'm glad you brought that up as well. Yeah, that's definitely what's happening.
Yeah. So burning it down and starting over doesn't sound so bad now, does it? No. That That was my mom's solution. Hey, it's all about no, stop. Oh
I
my
understand
goodness.
that.
Oh wow. Well, thank you, ladies, for all your responses.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we were on three. We're on three now. So to have volunteer.
Okay, Cooper says that she wants to live in a nation that believes it has a responsibility to Black women as citizens and as people to make the world safe for them. Given current events, do you think this is or ever will be possible? How do we get there? I very much so understand Cooper's argument there, and I think she put it forth in such a compelling way that by first letting us know kind of the personal, of course. Here's what my mom went through, right? And knowing that, and the imagination, right? Because we had to think about had her mother got killed, Cooper's life would probably look totally different. So this very public intellectual, this very gifted young Black woman, this woman who is, you can see her at a very good university, Rutgers, and you can also see her at Essence Fest and dancing, and so kind of just this very a cultural figure. So who's not just hidden away in academia. So I'm thinking about what that would mean if I had never been introduced to her scholarship, and what that would mean if this reading circle had never been able to read, some of her books. So there's one thing that she does there regarding this question. Like, we have to kind of imagine what would have happened. Okay, so then going to growing it out. Would this world ever be safe for Black women? And I have to think of that in terms, I don't know if you meant it that way, Gio, but I was definitely reading diaspora there.
Yes.
Um, and so I don't think so. And unfortunately, this is our reality. And it's also made us do some very creative things. And we've had to find very creative ways to protect ourselves and each other. It's heart wrenching because it's additional labor for us, but it is what we know that we've had to do to survive. And I was, looking at Cooper's Twitter feed, and she talked about Dr. Ford and the Senate Judiciary hearings. And first, Anita Hill kind of, okay, we can already go there, which she showed us as Black women. But what Cooper said was, when a white woman's tears cannot move powerful and elite white men to act on her behalf, they ain't doing shit for us. So I'm sorry, I just have to say it like that, but this is the reality. And in all my 40 years of living on this earth, I have never said more than this year to my husband, I need a gun. Like, I'm serious. I need to be armed because I need to be able to protect myself. And, I have daughters. I don't know, I feel there's this visceral, I know I'm having this reaction to what's going on. And when you put, this is why it was so serious for Black women. We knew it, we understood it. You cannot say that, oh, his rhetoric could be ignored and vote a man like that into the White House. You cannot do that. We knew this would have these kind of critical consequences the world over. So we've seen how that rhetoric how it moves, how it migrates, right? And so the world over, what's happening, what has always happened, but it's so in our face, right now. And so yeah, so I'm Gio to just bring it on home. No, I wish I could be more optimistic, but no.
Well, we might all feel that way. Oh, if history dictates anything. But thank you, Nicole. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, yeah, I do feel that way, but I don't want to. And,
Understood.
and so I have to try to see another possibility. And I mean, who knows what way this world is going to go. Like in our first meeting this session, and Benita and I were talking about the Harari book, Sapiens, where he spends a lot of time talking about these superhumans that are being constructed, and who knows what that will look like and how that will shape our world, and if they will have values and what kinds of values they will have, and will there be a ratio between just old-fashioned human beings and these new creations. And but to the extent that there are the model of sapiens that we have come to know, the world is missing something very critical when it doesn't have the genetic capacity, the emotional capacity, the mental capacity, when it doesn't have some of the characteristics that women bring to the table, then a lot is missing from the human gene pool. And so, if we were to extend this out, let's say the men decided they were just going to kill all the women because they got it in their head that that was a fun thing to do. I think at some point, some of them would have to start to say to themselves, yeah, but we're missing something critical. And so, maybe they pull us out of the freezer and put us back into play, or build some of our characteristics into this new type of human that's going to be on the scene. So I don't know how we get there, Gio. I'm just saying, I think that not science fiction, but science reality is opening up some, really hard to imagine possibilities.
Wow, thank you, Michelle. That's a really that's an angle I hadn't explored before. That in our rush to AI and this super soldier, superhuman, genetically modified, uh, pick your baby out of the basket catalog kind of thing, that they could essentially CRISPR out, which is the method they use for the genetic splicing and selection, the things that make us the best things about humanity, which come from the feminine side. All that nurturing, empathy, healing power.
Right. So they're coming up with artificial beings that they can screw.
Yes.
But that's it. But these other characteristics that have never been valued and appreciated fully, you don't hear much talk about, but how do we capture that, in this brave new world we're creating?
Indeed.
Yeah, there was controversy here in Houston because Mayor Sylvester Turner had to revoke a license, a business license, because they're opening a bar, a club, a lounge. What do you call it? But they're gonna, the idea is the sex robots would be yeah.
Are the strippers protesting because they need to? Okay.
Right, what's gonna happen there? Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. So it was revoked because he says, I don't want this near schools, and so kind of the whole politics of that. But and based on the report, it just sounded like what they're gonna do is just go back to the drawing board and find another space. It seemed based on the report that I'm kind of confident that it's going to happen though.
Wow.
And maybe, and the flip side of this, I don't know. I mean, when you think about some of the concepts, some of the things that, Spike Lee, as problematic as he can be sometimes, I'm thinking about the movie Chirac or something like that.
Yeah,
Chirac.
yeah.
Chirac. Okay, wasn't that like the impetus, like the women go on strike, they don't have sex with the men, but again, always additional labor for women. But I was just thinking, like, what if we started kind of pushing these damn men out and saying, until you get yourself together, I don't know, like, what would force them, I guess I'm asking, to be more empathetic? What happens? What we need to do? I even, I'm thinking, I know some people would say, well, what's happening with parenting? But that doesn't hold, if we're not talking about toxic masculinity. So you could raise children to go and be successful and, and send them out in the world and things happen. So I don't know, what does it take? And I like what Kim was saying earlier. What would usher in a transformation is what I'm asking for men, because even in spiritual context, you still see this kind of these war ideologies, political context, you see the war ideologies. It's what would it take?
I think there's an opportunity here for business here.
Wait, which one? Were we talking about the sex robot or something else?
You can make a robot that pleases women and make him chocolate, and move him up into the house. We would have more power and more sisterhood. We would economically take better care of each other. Because our needs would all be met.
I like that, Kim. That the only thing is, I don't want a man to capitalize. Like, he cannot get paid, for that. Like, this should be something women are paid for. That idea. I like that idea, Kim. I like it.
You would have your own.
Yes, but I mean,
we would actually build them.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I love it. That would be wonderful.
This way, the money is moving around in our own community as opposed to buying somebody else's robot. So
I love it, Kim. There's a huge pocket of single women out there ready to move up from the bottom.
I mean, and think about it. It's a little dog. Do y'all remember that commercial? What was the dog's name? Spuds McKenzie? What was it? He was supposed to have been taking the women from the men. Do y'all remember that commercial, the beer commercial?
No.
It's a little dog or something. But, if that could get men up in arms, I mean, just imagine with that nice chocolate robot.
One in every home. No.
Yes. Then you wouldn't have to take crap from so many different men.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it.
Well, we need to find a robotics expert quick, fast, and in dirty.
Yes.
Because they are building these robots to suit their needs, regardless of what we think about it.
Yes, and making it okay because what's that movie? There was some movie where the guy falls in love with I don't think she was actually I don't think she was uh a automation. I think she was just the like Alexa, like your computer, and he fell in love with her. So they're already trying to change our mindset about what love means. You know,
Right.
instead of saying that, oh, that guy needs some friends, they're like, normalizing this behavior.
Yeah. Well, even not at that extreme. Like in my house, I live alone in a small studio apartment. I have a small kitchen table with 2 chairs. I have my rolling chair on one side, and that's where I sit. And my book is here. It might be a plate of food here, or might be a sewing machine here. On the other side of the table, where I grew up, knowing that that would be another person's space, that's where my laptop lives.
Okay, as long as you haven't named the laptop yet, you're fine.
I haven't named it yet, Georgette, but now you got me thinking.
Oh, no.
If you program that thing to pull up candle lit screensavers, we're gonna have to come get you, girl. We're gonna have to come
Well, it's already pumping out some good music.
That's a plus. Oh my goodness. Okay, before we go further down this lane, Leonie, you want to add something to this question?
You're muted. The chocolate robot, Leonie.
I have a chocolate robot. The part that I can think of that's anchored in the reality that I'm living in right now is that in terms of what can be done, the comment earlier about how women have been like embroiled in this idea of toxic masculinity, sometimes being the actor, is to think of like what's within our greatest control, which is our own understanding and our own behavior. And what are we doing to be nonviolent and peaceful, particularly as parents, in a way that's nonviolent? Do you parent in a way that treats your child as a full human being and not as an object? So I think, David, to start there is like, what can you do? And then I think once you get clear about what you would put up with in your own, not put up with, but what you want in your own life, then you would pick someone to be with who would fit with that. Mm-hmm. Because coming from a place of like nonviolence or peace is so counterculture that you could not tolerate rid behavior. Yeah, that's my contribution.
Okay.
Not as fun as robots. Sorry.
That's okay. It was perfect. It was perfect. Thank you, Leonie. Okay, let's move on to question number 4. Any takers?
I can read
it. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Cooper's mother called her father a terrorist. How does this characterization make you feel? Have you ever experienced or been told about something similar? I mean, I worked in violence against women's shelter for like 15 years, so I say that is the experience of many people. This constant sense of like being under attack and not knowing where safety lies, I think. That's to me. And this often on all sides of things. You know? So I definitely have seen it.
Yes, that's a long time and a lot of pain. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah. Like from what I've witnessed, it's like people would for a certain amount of pain, and it was almost like it wasn't bottomless, but it had the feeling of being bottomless because there was always something more to explore. And yeah, so I could see why someone would use the word terrorist for all kinds of reasons. I don't like the use of that word, but like I can see why people would have that experience.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I too worked in a shelter. It's a real word, you know, with real impact. I want to read this piece that in my version of the book is on page 72 to 73. According to several years of reports by the Violence Policy Center, in the second decade of the 21st century, 8 Black women per week, more than 1 per day, are murdered, usually with guns, and usually by a Black male they know. More than 1,000 women of all races are murdered each year in similar incidents, usually by men of their own race. It has been said before, but it is worth saying again, toxic masculinity kills. So yeah, the numbers are just, you know, just really staggering. But so much the reality in women's lives. So y'all know, you've heard me many times say, you know, I'm a zero tolerance kind of girl. But you know, and my belief is that there are always red flags there, and we don't always know how to read them, and we don't always want to read them. But I believe they're always there, and that it is incumbent upon us as individuals to learn them, to learn how to recognize them, long before you get close to the stage of somebody killing you, because that does not happen on day one. That is a buildup of a lot of little things, playing games. And, you know, I was out with one of my girlfriends today, and we were talking about the Jim Jones situation. There was his movie was on TV this week, and, you know, just kind of talking about how people get involved in those kind of cultish situations. But she was saying, you know, you start out with a man and you're just playing games, and, you know, he just kind of pops you up the head, and, you know, everybody's like, yeah. It really is at that early stage that you have to start setting the boundaries. You know, I don't play like that. That's not funny. That's not cute to me. Because once you get to the stage where, you know, your life is in danger, a lot of things have happened to build up to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just go out on one date with the wrong person.
Yes.
And he becomes a stalker. He was a stalker before he met you.
Right.
And now all of a sudden he's set his target on you. So it's that man too, where you just didn't know. You know, I remember going out with somebody. I came home, this boy had called me 80 times.
Oh.
Before you got home?
Yeah, I was just like, well, how do I get away? This was before cell phones. I was just like, how do I get away from this?
Yeah.
Oh, and I was so, you know, and the sad part was I was so excited. I was like, oh, I'm going out with so and so and so. It's gonna be so nice. Boy, I came home. I was just like, ooh, that wasn't good.
And
so it took weeks to get rid of him.
What did you have to do?
Yeah.
Huh?
What did you do?
Hi.
If you don't mind us
Hi.
asking. What
Hi.
did you
You
do?
hid.
Hi.
Oh, you hid. Okay. I was gonna say change the phone number. You know,
And that makes me think about like and hold space for all the secrets that women in our families have held and had to hold on to. Women whose husbands came back from these various wars who were different men. They were, here's one man before you encountered war, and another man that she's come home to. And at that time, not having a diagnosis, not understanding post traumatic stress. How many women have stayed in relationships and tried to tame that monster because they sense that he's going to snap, and I'm not only is he going to kill me, but perhaps my children. So it makes me hold, I want to just like hold space for that as well, and just say to Kim that wow, that is just so like it's just mind-boggling, and it's not that I can't believe it, right? But it's close and so soon, which I'm glad you knew sooner rather than later. But oh, and it makes me wonder, like, are there are these? Was he a man, Kim, specifically the one you met, who did not, just like he knew, like something's off. I need to get to a doctor and see what's going on. I don't know if necessarily if those are the kinds of things happening, or these people having psychotic breaks. And growing up, I had a father. My father became he started as a licensed chemical dependency counselor, then moved on to get his LPC. And so my dad, because I think he was always exposed to these statistics, he would always, I don't care who it was, girl, watch him. He could be crazy. That's what he I don't care who I was dating. Okay, girl, he could be crazy. Girl, you better, so it just really, I'm thinking about so many women, you all. And then I guess maybe I've already confessed this to you all, but I realized last year that I've been grieving something from my own girlhood. That did I tell you all about the identical twin girls?
No, I don't think
When I was a
so.
young girl, I was like maybe 11 or 12. They were very dark skinned Black girls. They had like thick, coarse, long hair. And they were kind of tall, identical. I mean, you just could not tell them apart. And I had gone to school with them for, I think they were maybe 2 years older. So I think I had maybe a year with them at the max two. And we were walking home. The boys that I knew was teasing them, and I was scared of the boy. He was one of those very aggressive little boys, and I was afraid. So I did what I knew I didn't believe, but I was acting out my fear, and so I laughed. He was like, "You're black, ashy," just talking about them. And I remember one of the twins, because we'd always walked home together, but they were very quiet and they did have their own little twin language. And that's why people would call them weird and stuff. And so I think she might have been the younger one. It was this menacing stare that she gave me. She looked at me like you, like, wow, like, like not you too, like, because they dealt with people picking on them all the damn time. And so I was going to apologize because I felt so bad. And I think I've just always been an empath. And I said, so the next time I see them, I'm just going to say sorry. And those girls were freaking killed. They were fucking murdered. Their mother met this guy. Come to find out, she was doing drugs. And this is so weird because they had just told their grandmother that we need to get out of this home. We don't feel safe. And their grandmother had said, okay, well, Christmas break was coming up. And she said, okay, so just go to school, because it was like a Wednesday, make it until Friday, you know, and then I'll get you all, because they were going to inevitably have to change schools. And they were murdered. And when I tell you all, I had not thought about those girls. And then I started having dreams. Like, I don't know how you all describe it. Like, I feel like they were visiting me in my dreams. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta, you know, what do and I remember learning of their demise, because he killed the mother first, and they heard noise and came into the bedroom. He killed one, and then he raped and killed the other one. And so all three of them. And the reason why he was caught is because he ended up killing an Asian woman at a corner store. And some kind of way, somebody said he told them that. So I mean, and it's just so sad, because it's not even like he was caught for murdering them. And so I have been just sitting with, like, what am I to do? I've been thinking about advocacy, something I could do, a memorial, something to remember them. I mean, I don't know, because like they just started appearing in my dreams, and I was like feeling, you know, just tortured. So I'm just thinking about, like, yes to everything. And this book brought that home to me, that probably Brittney Cooper's saving grace was the fact that, sadly, the way in which religion had this kind of impact on her, and the way in which she started thinking about, if I have sex, or if I think I'm ahead, I'm probably, she's going to talk about that later in the book. If not, I remember her saying in this chapter, but that, you know, I can't get pregnant. I can't, you know, and somewhere her mother feeling like she was empowered enough to say, I gotta go, I gotta get out. And I mean, and the fact that she just didn't die when that, I don't know who survives it, who does not. And sometimes you don't, and even in their situation, like they were young girls. They were not doing the drugs, but were ultimately, you know, a part, like that collateral damage that they met their deaths, on premature deaths, because of the decisions that their mother made. And so, you know, and how do you, and like I said, and just the fact that I never had a chance, you know, to apologize. I had been looking, I went to school the next day because we would all walk, and I'd been waiting, like I needed to apologize, and not knowing what, I hadn't seen them. And then there's the reality, because they were dead in that house, you know, and until the mother's, actually her boyfriend ended up finding them, because he couldn't get in touch with her. And he went over there, and that's when he, you know, he entered the crime scene. So.
Yeah, well, it sounds like voices calling out to you. We had a murder-suicide in my family. And I never really thought about it as the mother's partner, but that's exactly what it was. The year was 1984. And I remember it so clearly because there were 3 boys that were born in my family in 1984, starting with my nephew, Jared, who's the son of my oldest brother. He was born in July. And then my son was born in September. And then another nephew, my brother, a younger brother's son, was born that October. So that July of 84, when Jared was 2 weeks old, he was sitting on the lap of his mother, and his mother, who I never met, her name was Carla, and her stepfather and my brother got into an argument, and the stepfather shot my brother 3 times, shot and killed Carla in the heart as she's holding the 2-week-old baby. And then he shot and killed himself.
Wow.
You know, Carla's mother was a state senator out there. You know, so it was kind of a big story, and you know, happening in a family where you don't expect those kinds of things. And yet that's how it went, you know. So, you know, and it really stuck with me. And, you know, I'm sure it's one of the reasons that I have such a zero tolerance for the nonsense. I don't understand why it's so difficult for people to just talk to each other and understand each other and, you know, and agree to disagree and go their separate ways if they have to. I don't understand why things have to go to this level. But I have understood for a long time that is what's happening in the world, you know? And so, yeah, Cooper's mother, you know, made the critical decision to try to get away from those men. And I think, as she points out in the book, that is the point at which things get really dangerous, you know? And that's why I'm always saying to you, you don't even need to be nowhere near that point. You know?
Exactly.
I always say I can see the sparkle in your eye. Get heated because you don't like something I say.
Yes.
You know, and then I'm done with that, because I'm gonna say something at some point that you don't want to hear.
Right.
But I don't want to feel like my life is on the line because of it. You know, we're individuals. We don't all see the same things or think the same things, have the same experiences. And so if we can't get comfortable with differences among people, then we've got some kind of, to me, unnatural expectation, going back to that sense of hierarchy. And, you know, people just want to have this relation where they lay down the law and you go along with the program.
Right. That power and control. How do we decenter that? And how do we have these kinds of conversations, holding each other accountable? And, you know, just what I don't really know. I don't know what happens. I know that a lot of women are suffering in silence. I'm thinking about that professor who was killed, the school teacher, that Black school teacher, I want to say was at Arkansas a year or so ago, and that her deranged husband came in and shot her and a couple of those children. Like what? Again, that toxic masculinity. And what gives one the right to feel that just because an individual is seeking something different? One thing I love about that Iyanla Bennet says that we all have to remember in relationship is people have a right to change their minds, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Whether you think it's the end of your world or not, whether you wanted that relationship, that partnership or not, people have the right to change their minds for whatever reason. You've got to let go.
Right.
And I
agree with that. I agree with that, Nicole. But I think a lot of times you're dating whatever trauma that person has experienced as a child, and that may run so deep that they don't even understand what that is, and so you don't even know what triggers them, what makes them go off. You know, they may be dating you, but trying to rekindle something with their parents, and you could just step in it. You just don't know. And I'll tell you something funny. The reason why I didn't want to go out with this guy again, who was just so gorgeous. We It was just like this sign, like Michelle was saying. Oh God, I wish this wasn't taped. But anyway, we had gone to dinner, then we went to the movies, and he came back with one soda. And so I said, "Oh, you only got one soda?" So he said, "I got two straws." I said, "Oh my God, we're adults." And so I said, "Okay, I'll go with it." So I said to him, "Well, how do I know which is my straw?" And so he showed me which straw was my straw. And then at some point I looked over at him and he had both straws in his mouth.
That's all you needed to know about this guy.
That was a neon red sign.
Yes.
I was done. I was done. I was just done. That little thing was a big thing.
Yeah, and when you ignore those little things, and that's why, I'm glad Cooper kind of got into the history of her mother, who grew up in this home where there were problems, and that created a susceptibility in her. And that would lead her into the arms of a Bob and a man, Mr. Man. So it's not just the dysfunction in the men, but what's the dysfunction going on with the woman, and she's got to get in touch with that too.
But even when you watch The Color Purple and they said, "Oh, if your wife isn't acting right, beat her." I think it was a part of a culture where you got to beat these women.
Yes.
And the one thing I did want to say before I forget, Nicole, I when you told the story of what had happened to those two girls, I'm wondering if you've maybe consider uncoupling those two stories. Because you told the two stories like one had something to do with the other.
Of me kind of laughing at the boy.
That's one tiny little incident that you may need to forgive yourself for.
Right, yes.
But you said it as if it had something to do with the murders.
No, I'm clear.
No, I know that you're not saying that you're responsible for that. But I would love it if you could just tell the story of the murders without telling the story of that situation, because they are not balanced. They're not the same.
Right. Yeah, I think it was just so weird because here I was like on the brink of around my birthday, like I don't know if you all do this. I'm always reflecting, but it was so much more reflection this year, I guess, because I was turning 40, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm 40 now. Yeah. Okay. But I wasn't ready for like, oh my God, why am I clearly having these dreams and I'm seeing them, and because I hadn't thought about it, for such a long time. And then I, started processing like, yes, I remember wanting to apologize, looking for them. And I think that was the thing that I hope I conveyed to y'all too, that I was looking for them, but they were dead. And so, and then I think too, Kim, the thing is, I ended up having identical twin girls who are dark-skinned Black girls that I have had to do this emotional labor as well to say, because I'm always like hashtag Team Melanin. I have to find the Black girl protagonists who are dark-skinned. I do that because I need to affirm. And so, but yeah, I think you're right though. In like just kind of move because I've cried over it already. Like I've gotten a whole like that catharsis, like, oh my God, how did I do that? But I think you're right that I could tell that story without kind of referencing, the pain of laughing and that menacing look that she gave me, like, oh, you're one of them too, like you're one of the girls, you've never been this kind of person to pick on us, or you know, aiding and abetting that. So yeah, I like what you're saying, Kim. I'm definitely gonna do that. But I think too, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Like, I'm just like, you know, is it a memorial when they come visit me in my dreams? I'm like, well, what do I need to do, you know, to make this right? But I do appreciate that,
It
Kim.
may
I
not.
think,
But what if they simply want you to mourn them because you may have been the only friend they had?
yeah, that's true.
It sounds like you're in your own grief and regret, but
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe they just want you to mourn them because you were their
Yeah,
friend.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was definitely just, you know, yeah. And now that I have twins, like now I understand what they were doing. They had a twin language. So what we thought was weird, it was
Mhm.
just a twin had, you know, and they kind of could push other people out of their world. And it's just the two of them, you know. And so I'm like, oh, now I understand. But, you know, yeah, so I think you're right. And that does make definitely like uncoupling that. It makes sense to me. Thank you for that, Kim. See, this is why I need to be in a space with readers and creative writers. And, you know, so when I write about it now, I can break that apart now and not feel that kind of that burden that I have felt. Yeah. Well, I didn't, Leonie,
Indeed.
were you saying something? I'm sorry, I think I cut you off. Let me mute.
No, I was, well, sorry, yes. I was saying that it may not be about them. It could be that that is the place where you get the lesson and it helps you to identify what's important for you. And then you decide where that shows up, if that makes sense. Because I know that I did something. So somebody introduced me to somebody who know that tapping thing. And I thought it was a load of nonsense until what that person helped me to do was to identify the moment, the exact moment when my trust in myself dropped to nothing. And there was something about just identifying the moment, and it involved other people. And I never had to go to those other people. It just helped me to recognize that this moment was important to me. And then from there, I was able to identify what my needs were. And that is what has, you know, I think I mentioned before, I live my life now by freedom and choice. Those are my two most dominant needs. And so it allowed me then to figure out what that means, what that looks like moving forward. I got the lesson and then I moved on from it. Revisit the past. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, that's beautiful, Leonie. Thank you.
Yes. Great advice. Wow. Thank you for sharing all your experiences. And just to tag on that for you, Nicole, it reaffirms your humanity. Because if you didn't feel anything now, having reflected on that incident in your life, it would mean you're just as cold hearted as the rest of the automatons running around here in human flesh. Okay. So it's all good. It'll work out. You'll do what you're supposed to do with it. Okay. And be healed. So it's all good. It's all good. So here we are at 7:28. We have so many questions. Oh no. So okay, we're going to revert to pick your question so we can end on time.
All right.
So whatever feels good to you, first come, first serve.
Hmm. Mm. Well, I guess since I'm talking about my brothers, I'll take a quick twirl with question 5. Is it true that Black men don't acknowledge our vulnerability, don't seem to think we need defending, and don't feel a political responsibility to hold Black women who aren't their mothers, sisters, or daughters up and honor them? What has been your experience? So, you know, just to be quick about it, my experience has been that they don't necessarily even feel the need to hold up mothers, sisters, and daughters anymore. So I went through a period where I wasn't speaking to any of my three brothers for quite a long while. But we've been back on speaking terms probably for about the past year or so. And one of them, I mean, he just like gives me money all the time. and none of them seem to like really want to have a conversation about all the stuff we went through. And I'm not, trying to push them to do so. But there's this one that just gives me money. And, and I guess it's his way of making amends, his way of feeling good about himself. I mean, I certainly need it, and I'm happy to be the recipient. But I think that when you don't hold up your mother's, sisters, daughters, the women in your immediate family and circle, that's got to feel shitty. And I think that's some of what, Cooper was getting at in this contradiction that she saw in her father of, being this man that had all of this love for people across the ocean, people he didn't know, and, had built up this image of being this, this thoughtful person. But it's not the person that she saw and knew. And so, I think that she's right that, and I mean, I can hear Leonie talking about structural issues. But I think that when you don't do what is within your power to do for your people, if you have any sense of integrity, morality, character, any of that stuff, when you do what's within your power to do, it's kind of emotional violence to you. It's got to have you questioning, what kind of human being you actually are. It's one thing when you don't have, you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
But when you don't do what you can do, so I don't think it's true for all Black men, certainly. I'm the quintessential daddy's girl. I had a wonderful daddy. I wish he could have been everybody's daddy. And so that gave me the knowledge from a young age that there are good men in the world, because I wasn't just exposed to him, but I was also exposed to his friends, and so, I think a part of what has happened in Cooper's life is, and for a lot of Black women who start out as Black girls, when things aren't right with your daddy, it really starts you off with, I think, warped perceptions maybe, or low expectations about who men, the possibilities for men,
Oh, that's beautiful, Michelle. Yes. And what
Thank
happens with, I'm thinking like, with Black men who a lot of times, I guess I want to think through. I know Brittney Cooper talks about creative family structures later in the book. And so when you say like these Black men who are reared, I guess what was modeled, I'm sorry, when Black women are looking at men and we're seeing a pattern, and I'm thinking about what, if we flip that and we look at Black boys, what are they learning from their fathers? And a lot of them are learning manhood from a man who's making it. I mean, it's just so complex, right? I sometimes I feel sorry for my own spouse because his father was murdered when he was 11, and so he has these romanticized notions of his daddy, and I know I can read it as a longing. And so his daddy lives in his memory because he didn't see his dad much. His dad lived in California. He had left Texas. And so he maybe saw his dad a handful of times in his lifetime. So his father's family members were sharing these stories, and there is really no way without me kind of, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to be kind of considerate here, but like me not challenging, saying, well, don't you know after death, sometimes people's images get sanitized, or, this kind of heroic notions of who this person was. And then you're basing this image of your father on somebody else's oral narrative. And it's just very complicated and messy. So with that, I'm going to give my piece, Gio, and be quiet. I'm going to go for number 10 quickly here. And
Okay.
and I love how you said, share a selection from the text. And what spoke to me was on page 94. And I love when Cooper said, Black men at the top of 94, that kind of cut off paragraph there. She's at kind of center of that. She says, Black men grow up believing and moving through the world politically as though they have it the toughest. Their pain matters most, as though Black women cannot possibly be feeling anything similar to the dehumanization and disrespect they have felt, that it might in many cases be worse for us, seems to many men a preposterous supposition. And yes, and here we go with President Obama. I'm glad he did the My Brother's Keeper initiative. And we go with police, kind of that state violence that we talk about, and other, initiatives that are far more willing to look at a Black man's pain, and not saying that, not to take anything away from that, but I think she's onto something when she says, yeah, we're dealing with a level of dehumanization and pain too.
Indeed. Thank you, Nicole and Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. That is the age old fight, isn't it? Oh, I'm doing this because I was oppressed. No, I'm doing it because you oppressed me. No.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all victims.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful sharing, ladies. So, in the few minutes we have remaining, we can maybe squeeze in one or two questions, maybe if you talk fast. No.
Well, really, Georgette, we're only supposed to be going to 7:30.
Okay. Well, you're the boss.
Well, no.
Well, no.
We changed the meeting time this session. We used to do
Okay.
6:30 to 8,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
so now we're doing 6 to 7:30. But if you all want to go over, I mean, it's fine. I'm just,
I now want to be considerate of your bandwidth. It's cool.
oh,
Okay.
well,
I know what's up.
but
So,
no, if somebody else is like burning to do a question, let's do it.
okay. It's in your court, ladies.
I'm good.
Okay. You have a question you want to read, or?
She said she's good.
Oh, she's good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. So, Leonie, did you have one?
Oh, no, I'm good too.
Okay.
I also have a meeting at the top of the hour, so.
All right. Okay.
I just had to say, looking at question 9, do you believe that too much of the conversation about patriarchy in Black communities pivots on Black women's low self-esteem? That, you know, as the love queen over here,
That's okay.
you know, that was, I don't know, there's to me some unpacking that happened around that whole topic.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes back to, can you see what's wrong with you? And then find a way to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our trust too, right? We have to, how do we start getting more Black mental health professionals and so forth? Because trust and that kind of cultural literacy that, you know, sometimes other folk don't understand, you know, when they're dealing with Blacks. I remember being a young woman and seeing a counselor, and I was describing like this clear-cut racist stuff was going, and she was like, well, could you look at it from a different perspective? No, I'm like, why am I going to pay you to try to talk me out of your white fragility is on display? And you're trying to make me believe that I'm not dealing with racist white women. What? Like, no. You know, so yes, I just wanted to say that, Michelle. We need folks who are literate in what the cultural nuances there.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, all right, ladies. If everyone has said their piece, you're satisfied, and we know that next week it's you, Nicole. Okay. All right. Well, I've enjoyed reading our story together. Such great conversation. Love you guys always so very much. You're beautiful. You are.
Same to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the great questions.
Yes.
Great session.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, we lift each other up mentally,
Yes.
emotionally, and spiritually. This is what we do here.
Black women studies say lift as we climb. Yes, I like that.
Yes.
All
Indeed. Okay, ladies.
All right.
Michelle, you want to close us out, or?
Everybody have a good week. Take care. And I hope to be better next week and getting us prepared, but you know.
It's okay. We're working with it. We're working with it. Whatever you bring.
Thank you. I'm gonna text Benita to say we miss your voice, Benita. I know she can't do it, but I know.
Somebody has been has a couple of people, 2 or 3 people have been watching us all night. It looks like, I'm sure.
Cool.
Wow. But you know,
good.
Leonie, we don't have you down to do any chapters. Are you prepared to commit to something?
Yeah, I think
the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think they're in a row, and I could do the first and the third. Of the 3 that were unassigned.
Of what?
Not the dates. The first. Sorry, I have to look at the actual schedule to do it, but there were 3 in a row.
Okay,
and I know the first date and the third date.
Oh, okay. The first date is October 20th, and the third date is November 13th. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
Okay.
October 20th is a Saturday.
30th. It's October 30th.
October
30th. Sorry.
October 30th.
Yeah,
And
October 30th and November.
And November 13th.
Yeah, both of those
Okay.
are fine.
Okay, so October
Cool.
30th is Chapter 7, Orchestrated Fury, and November 13th,
Yeah.
Chapter 9, Never Scared. So I will take November 6th, Chapter 8, and I guess I owe you all an updated schedule, so I'll try to get that out. And then the last thing that we have is November 27th, the last session. Does anybody want to go for that?
Let me check into it. I have comprehensive exams that week. So I don't. No. I can't because of where the exams are. I thought I could, but I can't.
Okay, so we can talk about that some more next week.
Okay.
But
all right. And we can also always use that other format too. But that could be a possibility too, where we choose. Okay, just in case. Okay. All right.
Okay. All right, you all. Thanks, Georgette.
Have a good week.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your meeting, Leonie.
Nice seeing you, Leonie.
Well, too. Good seeing you all. Bye.
You too.